Okay, so today what we're looking at mainly is, like I said, a deep dive into the evaluation process in SC Lead. What has to go in, where does it have to go, what has to be signed, what doesn't have to be signed, basically the clicks. So we've done sort of our introduction to ourselves. We've also introduced you to the work that we're going to do here today. We're going to talk briefly about contract levels, only in the sense that contract levels determine the portions of the evaluation that are required. We've got a handy tool that you can use at a glance to see which contract level requires which components. We also have just a brief talk about, and Jenny just dropped it in the chat box. Thank you, Jenny, that at a glance. It's also located on our website. But the components and sources of evidence, places that you can look for the evidence as an evaluator, places that you can suggest your evaluator look if you're a school librarian being observed. And then we're going to take a deep dive into the orientation, the school librarian plan, the observations and conferences in SC Lead. So at any point, like I said, if you have any questions, just stop us and let us know. Okay, next slide. So now we're going to talk just briefly about the rubric itself, and this is the foundation of the evaluation model for school librarians. And the school librarian rubric is divided into 4 domains: instruction, environment, library services and management, and professionalism. There are 21 indicators, and there are 4 performance levels ranging from unsatisfactory as a 1 to exemplary as a 4. Okay. The parts of the rubric, when you look at it, it can be a little overwhelming, but when you actually look at the components of it, it helps you break it down into more manageable concepts. The big bar across the top is the domain, and then the indicators are cited on the side and at the top of each block. The descriptors are the bullets that you see in each box. And then, of course, the performance levels range from 1 to 4. But the difference between the special areas rubrics and the school teacher or the educator rubric, the SCTS 4.0, is the column on the far left. Under each indicator, we have listed potential sources of evidence, places for your administrator or your evaluator to look for evidence to support that particular indicator. And we've done that for all of the indicators in the library rubric. Again, the ultimate purpose of all ADEPT is to encourage growth for teachers that impacts student growth. And so therefore, we want our rubric to be student-centered. We want all of our instruction to be student-centered. So as you move left on the performance levels from unsatisfactory towards exemplary, you're going to gain more and more student-centered language. You're going to see more student involvement, engagement, and activity. You're going to see the students doing more of the heavy lift than just the librarian. Again, back to the administrative support, our advisory councils who helped us make the changes to the ADEPT model for special areas came back unanimously with the fact that they were overwhelmed with the idea that their administrators may not know what they had to do in their roles, that if their administrator went straight from the classroom to the administration role, they may have never been a school counselor or a school librarian. They may not know what all is involved with culling the stacks and collection management, and if you have to do iPad issuing or whatever other duties are aligned with your role in your particular job description. So one of the things we incorporated throughout the guidelines, throughout the evaluator training, and throughout all of the rubric, all of the materials and SC Lead, are directed supports for those administrators to be able to see and encompass the whole role of the school librarian. And so we've included a whole section in the guidelines for ways that administrators can support their school librarians. We've aligned each one of those domains and each one of those indicators to specific sources of evidence and put it in writing right there in the rubric for you. We have listed scripted pre- and post-conference questions that are required that are directly aligned to indicators in the rubric. So as soon as you get the answer to the question, there's your evidence for that indicator. And of course, as I said earlier, in the trainings that we do, the training in Moodle, the school librarian evaluator training in Moodle, the special areas management training, in all of our trainings that we do and all of our presentations that we do to the school librarians, we encourage those roles and that knowledge of the role. Okay. The domain weights for the school librarians, instructional domain counts 30%, the environment 20%, library services and management 40%, because that's the bulk of what you do, and then professionalism 10%. And SC Lead factors and calculates all of that. I shared a meme on Facebook the other day that said, the Lord knew I would be too powerful if I could do math. So thank the goodness that SC Lead does it for us. So now let's talk a little bit about the actual process and evidence collection. And this is where we're going to go back to that chart, or to that chart that I was telling you about earlier, the at a glance. And this is where, this is the document. It's on our website. I know the print is a little small on this slide. You will get these slides eventually. Once we've got them closed captioned and done all the processes, they will be posted. This webinar is recorded and it will be posted on the web. Again, this document Jenny dropped in the chat a while ago. It's also located on our website, but it breaks down which of the components of the evaluation are required for each contract level. So just as an example, induction formative is usually that first year school librarian on an initial certificate from our office, from the Office of Educator Effectiveness. And so that would be a mentor, at least one observation per semester. They can't be waived in the spring. They would still do the school librarian plan and the SMART goal, professional goal, and would have the mentor. For an annual or continuing summative contract, which is what I'm going to demo for you in just a minute, NSC Lead, that's probably the heaviest lift as far as the normal contracts that we see, and that's that required adept evaluation that is required in order to progress to a professional certificate in South Carolina. And that's at least 2 observations per semester, one from an administrator and one from a content expert. And then, yes, the school librarian plan, yes, can't be waived in the spring. SMART goal, yes, but the SMART goal is embedded in the librarian plan. The summative and diagnostic assistants require a content expert on the team, but the rest don't. And then they would be assigned a mentor for annual formative or diagnostic assistants. For continuing GBE, for continuing formative, the yes to GBE. That is the GBE. The GBE is the goal that's embedded in the school librarian plan. I think that answers that question. And so as you can see, this is these are what things are going to populate. If you have the contract and evaluation levels set correctly in SC Lead, these items will automatically populate on the left. And so they will automatically factor into your bars and bubbles, and they will that informs SC Lead what it's looking for, what needs to be completed in order for that educator to be met or not met with a complete adept evaluation for that year. Okay, next slide. Reminders for evaluation setup. If you're the person responsible for doing those for setting up those evaluations, every evaluation needs an evaluation chair. This is also required for special areas. When adding team members, the evaluator needs to be given permissions to the evaluation. If the evaluation teams are created at the district level by a district adept coordinator, then school principals do not have the ability to be able to change the team. But if the building administrator creates the team, then the district office or the school can change the team. And then the orientation date must be entered by an adept administrator or an evaluator before the teacher can sign the orientation. Okay. All right, let's jump into SC Lead. The testing dashboard has frozen up on me several times today, so if something happens, I do apologize ahead of time. So as a school librarian, if I'm sitting down to start my work for the year, oh, and I meant to tell you all, one of the things that I'm using to guide my tour today is the help guides. And the help guides are located under your home tab in SC Lead on the bottom right corner. And so those help guides are tremendous. They are click by click steps that will help you know exactly where to click, and what to do. Okay, can you all see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. I can't see anything but the screen. Okay, so if I'm a school librarian, first of all, I wanted to let you all know that I'm using the SC Lead testing dashboard, which if you're an administrator, an adept administrator, you probably already have one because you used it to learn to navigate SC Lead. If you do not, if you're a district adept coordinator and you do not have the testing site and you would like one, I think you can reach out to Randa and ask for one. I believe that's right. Lila, correct me if I'm wrong.
That's right. I'll pop the email address in the chat.
Thanks. So I'm going to pretend to be a school librarian well, actually, no. As a school staff, as the building principal, if I am the person assigning the evaluation, then I would see a different view. For right this minute, I'm going to go in and I'm going to pretend to be the school librarian. And this is my testing dashboard. Like I said, it's been a little wonky today. So you will see that I have my orientation. No, I don't. Okay. Y'all bear with me. It's been very finicky this morning. But in the testing dashboard, if you haven't played around in it a lot, you can impersonate different roles. So you can pretend to be the superintendent, you can pretend to be district staff, and you can go through click by click as a school counselor or as a school librarian or as a principal or as the adept coordinator. You can practice your clicks and be able to grab screenshots and things. If this doesn't work, I have permission to use a librarian's account. Okay. So for the 23-24 school year, if I'm going in as the principal and I want to make sure that everything is set correctly for my school librarian, I'm going to look under my staff and I'm going to make sure that I can see that I have the school librarian's contract level set correctly and that the evaluation level is set correctly. So when I look at Librarian Elementary, Sunnyside 6774, I see that she has not had a 23-24 evaluation set up. So as the principal, I'm going to add the evaluation. Now, in some districts, your district administrator does this. It just depends on your district. So as the principal, I'm going to assign her an evaluation. I want it to be a summative evaluation. Notice it does not have contract level here. I will have to come in and notice that SC Lead is telling me, hey, wait a minute, you're missing a contract level. And it will not score at the end if it's not set. So it does, SC Lead, we've built in reminders for you. But I would go here to settings and change, make sure it says annual 1 summative. Make sure her location is correct. Yes, Sunnyside 6774, and submit. Make sure your evaluation model says ADEPT 2020 for special areas. And then notice that the orientation date is blank. The orientation date has to be set. So I'm going to set the orientation date for today's date. And I'm going to submit. Now, notice that nothing has populated on the side here. It's because the librarian has not signed the orientation. So as the principal, I'm going to call Miss Mary back and ask her to please sign her orientation. She'll get a notice in SC Lead, but I'd just like to add that personal touch. So I'm going to reach out to her and ask her to please sign her orientation. And now I'm going to pretend to be Miss Mary Mack, the school librarian. And I will show you what my next steps would be. So I see my orientation here. I'm going to go into the orientation. I'm going to add my signature to the orientation. And notice that now all of the requirements for my particular evaluation as assigned by my contract level and my evaluation level are populated now. So at this point, I could either go in and start my plan, or I could just let my principal know, hey, I've done my orientation. When do you want me to have my plan done? But I'm going to go ahead because I'm an overachiever, and I'm going to go ahead and start on my school library plan. And so it's as simple as, and again, this is from the perspective of the librarian. This is what the librarian sees when you log in to your SC Lead, to your evaluation for this year. So I'm going to always start plan. And again, these clicks are click by click described and screenshotted in that help guide. So I'm going to click start plan. And then basically SC Lead is going to walk me through every aspect of the school librarian plan. We do have samples that are already done on our website. And I've sent several to different members of SCASL in the past, but I know that that's no longer. So I don't know where those went. I'm sure they're on a website somewhere. But I'm happy to send you samples at this point. Please select the type of schedule that would be used. What type of schedule are you? Are you fixed? Are you flexible? I'm going to say I'm flexible, just for this purpose. Now, if I have any type of schedule that I want to attach, I would attach it here. My collection analysis documentation can be uploaded right there. My budget analysis would be loaded there. Alignment goals, and this is a lot of what people were asking for examples for. previously, list resource alignment goals. And so you would fill in here what your resource alignment goals are. And then we included in C Appendix L, resource alignment through collection mapping. And so it's not going to let you do anything if you don't type in something. And I don't recommend you all type gibberish, but I had part of this filled in already and it disappeared when the evaluation that I had set up for today disappeared. And I had that same thing happen yesterday. Which was why I had a friend on backup. Thank God for library friends. So once you complete that list of resource alignment goals, then you would go down to your use of technology, your use of library media center services, resources and space, your circulation policy, your disposing of discarded materials policy, any school involvement, advocacy, if you do any kind of type of community involvements in your library, any type of outreach from the library, anything from there of that sort where you collaborate with teachers to deliver services to students would go in this section. And then this is what I was telling you earlier. This is where your SMART goal is found. And it has to align to one of the indicators in the school librarian rubric. So this SMART goal has to be aligned to one of the identifiers or one of the indicators in the rubric. And then you simply describe how you collaborate with parents and administrators and other stakeholders to ensure quality services. That's those, again, those parent workshops, any staff development, community presentations. This is where you explain who you worked with and how, the collaboration piece. The other was the actual activities. And then you submit. You go back through it and make sure that everything's saved correctly. I always encourage you to scroll all the way to the bottom of a screen, no matter what you're in your SC Lead components, because some things have a tiny save button at the bottom and some don't. The ones that do, if you don't click that save button, it won't save your work. But the plan does automatically save once you click submit. So then you're going to have, and then I would also go on and create my goal. And again, this is where your professional goals are if you need to have a professional goal. And that's just on an as-needed basis determined by your district. But for the plan, and I would schedule the preliminary plan conference with my administrator or evaluation chair. And so then when you go into the plan, and see, when you want to go back to it, all you do is click on plan on the left, and here it says your school librarian plan was completed on 9/13, modified, and then click on details, and it's going to populate again. You can edit it. You can delete it if you made a mistake. You can go back. But this is when we want to do the preliminary approval conference. And so your evaluation chair is going to set that up and assign you the time. And then you all will go in and you're going to add your signatures. So any questions about the school librarian plan? And I can't see the chat, y'all. So if there are any questions that I need to hop on the mic and answer, just let me know. So at this point, as the librarian, once I've signed my orientation and completed my plan, I'm at a standstill until I hear from my evaluation chair. So now I'm going to impersonate the principal. And I'm going to go into this evaluation, and you'll see that I see that she has completed, she's signed her orientation by the bubble on my evaluations tab. And as the principal of Sunnyside, I will only see the evaluations being done at my school. And so I go in, I see that she's got 100% for her orientation. She has signed it. Now, the reason the plan has not populated is, remember, it's not approved yet. There's no signature on it. So I'm going to go into her plan. Remember, I'm pretending to be the principal now. And I know a lot of times as a principal, as a district administrator, we get caught up in the rush of, let me just get this signed, let me just get this done, let me just get to this. But we do go into a great amount of detail, and a lot of thought was put into the verbiage in the actual website. So under that school librarian plan, it gives you a breakdown of what it includes. It gives you some options as far as what potential evidence could be listed or used from the librarian in these conferences. So take a quick second when you have a chance to read through that if you have any questions, because sometimes you can answer your questions like that. Not that we're not always happy to hear from you. So I would go into the school library plan, and as the principal, now I'm going to look through all the documents that are attached. I'm going to read the alignment goals. We're going to, during that preliminary approval conference, we're going to talk through some things. If I'm a school librarian, I'm going to be begging for money. If I'm a school principal, I'm probably going to have to say no, and I don't want to. Or I may not be able to give as much as the librarian wants. But we'll talk about that. We'll discuss that SMART goal in detail. And then I will put the date of when that preliminary approval conference was. The conference has been completed. Once it has been completed, and submit. So then I go back after I click submit, then it takes me back to this page, and underneath preliminary approval conference, it'll have the date, it'll have the result, it'll have any comments if we entered any comments, and I will add my signature. So now when I go back, to my status page, you'll see that my school library plan is 25% complete. Now let's look at an observation. If I'm the school principal, I'm the evaluation chair, and I'm ready to assign, or I've already assigned the evaluation. Now I'm ready to get started on my observations. So I'm going to click under observations, and I'm going to click add an observation. Under add observation, I'm going to notice it says fall semester. I'm going to put the observation date. And remember that observation date is the actual date that I'm going to go into the library and observe. Within 3 days before that is when I need to have that preliminary conference, that pre-conference. So I'm going to schedule the observation for the 21st. And I'm the principal. I'm at Sunnyside 6774, and I'm going to click submit. So here are the observation details, just a quick overview, and it will tell you have not started it yet. You're going to run over here to the pre-conference, and you're going to say, okay, we're going to edit the pre-conference planning sheet. And we're going to date it. Now, I said the observation was going to take place on the 21st. I'm going to do my preliminary conference on the 19th. I'm going to incorporate that approval of the plan with my pre-conference just to save myself some time. It's not required, but you can. You're going to set the tone, give the greeting. All of this is what we demo in the training modules in Moodle. And remember, I talked about those required questions. You don't have that one-off random interview anymore from Safe-T. You don't have the issue of trying to figure out what to say or what to ask. We have scripted required questions for you. And remember, we have aligned them to the indicators. So very clearly, question number 1 is aligned to promoting literacy. Question number 2 is aligned to promoting inquiry. As you're working through facilitating that pre-conference, you're going to type in your answers to the librarian's answers to these questions. Now, if you don't want to type while she's talking, you could always take notes and do this later. I would rather do it in the moment so I capture everything. So I'm going to capture all my answers to my questions. And remember, those are required. And we've also aligned this question to knowledge of learners. If I have any questions about the lesson, how large is the class? What am I going to see? What period? How long have you been working on this? Is this the first time you've met with this class? Things that I may be curious about. Then you're going to summarize any next steps if necessary and be on your way. Confirm the logistics for observation, like when am I coming in? I'm coming in on the 21st. What time am I coming? Okay, I'll be there at 9:30. And then remember I talked about that save button. There's nothing more frustrating than typing all that stuff in and forgetting to click save. And I'm sure that's probably been my problem several times when doing this demo or trying to capture screenshots because I forget to click save. I don't scroll all the way down. So now I've held my pre-conference. This was the pre-conference planning. So we've held the pre-conference. Now I go to my scripting. If you are scripting and you want to house your scripting and your district allows scripting in SC Lead, this is where you would provide that scripting. And you would align it to whichever indicators you found it evidence for. Or this is the observation itself. This is not necessarily the pre-conference. So I'm going to type some information in here, just maybe my upfront summary. And I'm going to type which indicators I observed. I'm going to click add. And then I'm going to go to self-reflection and ask the administrator, once I have watched that lesson, once I have scripted and observed, I must go in and click allow educator self-reflection, or the self-reflection will not populate for the librarian. So as the evaluator, I go in and click that. Now, in the meantime, as the school librarian, I'm going to go over here to evaluation conferences, and I'm going to pull out my worksheet. Following each observation, the evaluator must score each indicator using the worksheet forms. So I'm going to start a worksheet because remember we said that you may not see every indicator in one visit to the librarians to see them, to observe. So we're going to build this worksheet. So you're going to submit. Now, so today I may have gone in to see instruction. So I will type in, okay, what evidence did I find from promoting literacy? Well, remember, even after my pre-conference, I'm going to have evidence for promoting literacy because that was one of the questions that was aligned. So I'm going to go ahead and type in all of my evidence for promoting literacy, and I'm going to assign a score. And I'm going to do that for all of the indicators on the worksheet eventually. It may not all be with one observation, but preferably it's going to be between the pre-conference, the observation, and the post-conference. Hopefully you will have evidence that you need to be able to complete all the scoring on the worksheet. So I'm just going to go in. Remember, I'm typing in my evidence for the indicator, and I'm choosing what score. Motivating learners. Carla's such a great motivator. She knows her kids. She cares. She knows their RIT scores and their MAP scores, and she knows their reading level. She encourages them to collaborate. Now, eventually, once you click, she's my best friend, I'm not giving her two. So we're going to click, don't forget, save. Now you can go back and edit if you need to, but so then at some point I would go in and do environment as well, 4, 3. It's an awesome learning environment. I have all this evidence, and remember that's the key, is all this evidence that I've collected as the evaluator. The kids were engaged. All right, save. And I go into library services. Now remember that you will still be collecting evidence at the post-conference. So I'm not going to finish this now. I'm going to show you, I'm going to go on. So I'm going to go back to worksheet details. I'm going to go back to evaluation conferences, and I'm going to go back to the observations tab. So now, nope, I clicked on. I'm going to go back to the evaluation conferences tab. I went one back too far. So I'm going to click in, and I'm going to scroll down. Not yet. So back to observations, back to the one I'm working on, and I'm going to go to the post-conference. So now I've done what I'm doing. It's been 4 days. It's time for our post-conference. So the educator has gone in and self-scored. I'm going to go into the planning sheet, and I'm going to ask the required questions. So now I have more evidence for promoting literacy, promoting inquiry, motivating learners, library knowledge of learners. I have more of that, but I'm also going to, this is where I have planned ahead, and based on what I saw during my observation, I've assigned that area of reinforcement and refinement. And we discussed that during the post-conference. We add all of our discussion notes, the plan moving forward. How am I going to support the educator? How is the librarian going to support herself by accomplishing these things? We're going to restate briefly the area of reinforcement and refinement. I may share the scores that I have from what I have scored, but again, that may or may not change. And then I'm going to close my closing statement. Don't forget during the post-conference to go in and talk about their scores and use their self-reflection as well as part of your talking points. Okay, so I'm going to save. Add any attachments, any documentation, any agendas, anything that may be necessary to include as part of the evaluation. Now I'm going to go to conferences. I'm going to go back into my worksheet. I'm going to finish my scoring. I'm going to add all that evidence. And I'm going to click save. Notice All 3 of my bubbles are complete. Nobody sees your worksheet but you. So that is confidential only to you. I can't go in and see your worksheet. You can't go, I mean, nobody else can go in and see your worksheet. So if you don't save it, there's no way I can save it. So just keep that in mind. So going back to observations, and we'll go to this one. Now, as the educator does the self-score, once the educator does the self-score, then we would come in and add signatures. So I'm going to add my signature as the principal. I've met with this teacher. I think I just fat-fingered that number. No, I didn't. And so going back now to the results page, or back to this page, you will see that that first observation says it is completed. So now, of course, at the top, you see the blue notice that says requirements have not been met. Minimum number of observations for preliminary cycle have not been completed. That's because for an annual 1 summative, there are 2 required. Now, also notice that it says the number of observers for the preliminary cycle have not been completed. That means that I can't be the only one that goes in to do an observation. Somebody else has to go in and observe. And it has to be a content expert. So that's the plan. And remember that you go back and sign the plan at the midpoint and at the final. So as the principal, I will go in at the end of the year and complete the professionalism review. We'll go back and sign the goals if there were separate goals. But we will be required to have signatures on the plan, and we'll be required to have those observations completed. I know the worksheet can kind of trip you up going back and forth, and it's under evaluation conferences because it factors into the conference discussion. Again, show you where I'm on the home page as the principal, and the testing site doesn't have the help resources updated, but this is where your click-by-click guide, and it has them for evaluators and for practitioners. So if I'm the school librarian, if I'm Carla Laney in Manning and I want to know exactly click by click what to do for my school library plan, and I can't get my best friend since 8th grade, Beverly Hyatt, on the phone, then I would automatically go here and look for it.